The worst betrayal doesn't always come with a loud confrontation, a dramatic affair, or an open argument. Sometimes, it comes in the form of something quieter, something that happens in front of everyone, something that takes years to notice, but when it does, it's too late to go back. That was what I learned one night, during a simple dinner toast, of all things. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. In fact, it was supposed to be one of those nights that people would forget as soon as it was over. A group of friends gathered in our living room, sipping wine, chatting about life, laughing at jokes that didn't really need to be funny, but were because of the alcohol. I could tell from the way she was acting that Amelia was excited about the evening. She had worked hard to make everything just right. Cooked a meal, set the perfect mood, all the small touches that she always took pride in. I had no reason to think anything was amiss. But somewhere between the laughter and the casual banter, something shifted. It wasn't obvious at first. It wasn't like I could point to a single moment and say, that's when everything started to unravel. But in hindsight, I see it now. It was there all along, hiding in plain sight. The evening progressed as expected. We moved to the living room, and Amelia, as she always did, took the role of the hostess, commanding attention with her charm and wit. People were hanging on her every word. I stood at the edge, nursing my drink, content in my own space. But as the night wore on, the realization crept in that I was more of a spectator than a participant. At one point, Amelia stood up to give the toast. Everyone fell silent, glasses raised, waiting for the familiar words. Her voice filled the room as she spoke with her usual grace, praising our friends and family for the simple joy of being together. It wasn't anything particularly profound. It didn't need to be. The typical toast, the typical line. To love, to friendship, to family. But then she turned to me, and that's when everything changed. And to my amazing husband, she said, her voice lighter than I had ever heard it. The man who, despite his many quirks, somehow makes our life together interesting. You know, he's a nitpicker, a perfectionist, and always has to have everything just right, which, frankly, drives me insane most of the time. There was a soft chuckle from the room, and I forced a smile. It wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. It wasn't the first time she'd poked fun at my tendency to overanalyze things, to make sure everything was in its perfect place. But this time it felt different. Don't get me wrong, she continued. I love him for it, but sometimes I wish he'd just relax a little. Let things go. I laughed along, though it felt like my throat was tightening. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what she was doing. It was just a joke, right? Just harmless humor. But deep down, I could feel the sting. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them. The way her eyes flickered around the room, making sure everyone else was laughing along with her. And that's when it hit me. She was making a point. And it wasn't just about me being a nitpicker. It was about my place in her life. Her need to present a version of me that was, frankly, smaller than I really was. I wasn't just the husband. I wasn't just a partner in her life. I was the punchline of her jokes. As the laughter died down, I took a long sip from my glass. I felt small, exposed. Like I was being torn down in front of people I had trusted for years, people I had opened up to, people who, now, were laughing at my expense. I looked around the room and saw them all, our friends, our close circle, nodding and smiling, oblivious to what was happening beneath the surface. But there was something even worse than the joke. Something far more insidious that I hadn't fully processed yet. Amelia wasn't just poking fun. She was distancing herself. She was separating herself from me, from who I was, from what I represented in her life. And that realization hit harder than any words she could have said. I don't think she realized what she had done. I think she thought she was just being clever, just having fun with her husband's quirks. But it was a pattern I had seen before. The way she would undermine me in front of others, the little jabs, the subtle digs that she claimed were just jokes. The way she started to look at me with that slight distance, like I was a character in a story she had grown bored of. The rest of the night dragged on, but I couldn't focus. I couldn't join in on the conversations. My mind was spinning. How long had this been going on? How long had I been blind to this dynamic in our relationship? And then, just as the night seemed to settle, the final blow landed. Amelia turned to me again, her eyes meeting mine for just a brief moment before she raised her glass. "Here's to Ethan," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The man who always wants to fix everything, but sometimes doesn't realize he's the one who needs fixing. The room went quiet for a second before the obligatory chuckles filled the air. And that was it. The moment I realized it wasn't just a joke anymore. It was the truth she feared. She wanted to cover it up, hide it behind humor, but I saw through it. I knew that if I didn't do something, if I didn't stand up for myself, I would be lost forever in the role she had created for me. And that's when I stood up, glass in hand, and made my decision. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative any longer. The room was still. Amelia's words hung in the air like a thick fog, choking the life out of any good feeling I'd had. My hand was still around the glass, but I wasn't sure if I even wanted to drink anymore. I just stared at it, watching the liquid slosh around as my mind raced. Did I hear that right? My own wife had just taken a jab at me in front of our closest friends. But it wasn't just the words that cut deep. It was the way she said them. The way she seemed to look through me, as if I were some kind of nuisance, a side character in her story. I'd heard it before, the jokes, the comments. She'd always chalked it up to just teasing, lighthearted fun. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was the punchline, and everyone else was laughing. I tried to mask it, tried to push the anger down, but the truth was undeniable. She was pushing me away, bit by bit, and I hadn't even realized it until now. The thought settled in my chest like a stone. She didn't see me the same way anymore. I wasn't the man she loved, the man she married. I wasn't even her partner. I was an inconvenience, someone who had to be fixed. My mind raced through everything we'd been through. Years of marriage, promises, shared moments. How had we gone from that to this? How had she become so comfortable with belittling me, with making me the target of her sharp, cutting remarks? How had I allowed it to go on for so long? The silence in the room was suffocating, and I could feel all eyes on me. It wasn't like anyone could hear my thoughts, but they could see it in my face. They could see the way I suddenly wasn't laughing, the way my smile had faltered. The pitying looks from some of them made me want to crawl under a rock. And then, as if to add insult to injury, Amelia smiled at me, her eyes flicking quickly between my face and the glass she was still holding, waiting for me to join in on the joke. The others did, of course. They all laughed and raised their glasses, oblivious to the discomfort in the air, oblivious to what was happening beneath the surface. But not me. I just stood there, feeling smaller with every passing second. I wanted to walk away, to leave. But I wasn't going to let her have the last word. Not tonight. If she was going to play this game, then I would too. I wasn't going to sit in the corner anymore, silently suffering. I stood up slowly, my legs a little shaky from the rush of emotions. The room quieted once again as I raised my own glass. Amelia looked at me, her eyebrows arching in mild surprise, but I could see the flicker of something else behind her gaze. Fear. She knew what was coming. To truth. I began, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. To the truth that we've been avoiding for far too long. To the things we pretend don't matter, but really do. To the secrets we try to bury under jokes and laughter. Amelia froze. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a split second, I saw a crack in her carefully constructed facade. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. The room was still again, but this time it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a tension, a pressure in the air. The kind of silence that only comes when something real is about to happen. I've spent years making excuses for things I didn't want to see. I continued, my voice gaining strength. Pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. But I can't pretend anymore. I won't. Amelia opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her usual quick wit had vanished. She was caught off guard, not expecting me to stand up, to call out the truth the way I was. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for at that moment. Maybe I just wanted her to acknowledge it, to admit what had been happening between us. Maybe I wanted her to realize that I wasn't just some guy who would smile and take whatever she threw at me. But as I looked around the room, I knew that what I was doing would change everything. To the things that matter, I said, raising my glass higher, even when we're too scared to face them. The tension broke with a clink of glasses. People awkwardly raised their own glasses, unsure of how to respond. Some offered weak smiles. Others just sipped their drinks, as if nothing had happened. But I saw it in their eyes, the shift, the realization that something was happening that they hadn't expected. Amelia finally spoke, her voice tight. Ethan, what are you talking about? But I didn't answer her. Not yet. I was done pretending, done letting her control the narrative. Tonight, I wasn't just her husband. I was a man who had finally seen the truth. And now, she would have to face it too. The words hung in the air for a moment, thick and heavy, as I stood there holding my glass. Amelia was looking at me like she had just been slapped. Her eyes flickered between mine, searching for some sign that I wasn't serious. But I wasn't going to back down. Not now. She cleared her throat, her voice a little shaky, though she tried to maintain that perfect, poised exterior. Ethan, I don't know what you're talking about. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for backup, but the silence from our friends was deafening. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. But I could feel the change. The power had shifted. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking back. I wasn't the one who had to make excuses for her. I wasn't the one who had to pretend that everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. I think you do, I said calmly, keeping my voice even. You just don't want to admit it. You've spent so long covering up the truth, pretending that everything's okay, and I've let you get away with it. But I'm done pretending too. I could see her face harden, the anger bubbling up behind her eyes. But this time, I wasn't intimidated. This time, I wasn't the man who could be brushed off with a joke or a smile. She had made me feel small for too long, and I wasn't going to let her do it anymore. The awkwardness in the room was palpable. Our friends looked from me to Amelia, unsure of whether they should intervene or just sit back and watch the drama unfold. Amelia put her drink down slowly, her hands shaking ever so slightly. What are you trying to say, Ethan? Her voice was still controlled, but the underlying tension was unmistakable. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about her reaction. I wasn't worried about the consequences of speaking the truth. I had spent too many years tiptoeing around her feelings, afraid to speak up, afraid to rock the boat. But tonight, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I'm saying that I'm tired of being your punchline, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. I'm tired of being the one you make fun of in front of our friends, in front of everyone. I'm tired of being the one who's always expected to laugh at your jokes, to pretend it's all just some harmless teasing. Her eyes flashed with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was guilt, maybe frustration, but it was there, and for a moment, I saw a crack in her armor. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't going to give her the chance. Do you really think I don't see it? Do you really think I didn't notice how you've been distancing yourself from me? How you've made me feel like I'm just some background character in your life? I took a step closer to her, my voice rising with the emotion I had been holding in for so long. You've been so busy running your little game, using me as the punchline, that you forgot I'm a person too. I'm not some accessory you can toss aside when it's convenient. Her face went pale. The room was still. It felt like time had frozen, and for the first time, it wasn't her controlling the space between us. It was me. Amelia looked around at our friends, but no one spoke up. The silence was deafening. For a moment, I thought she might break down, might apologize, but she didn't. Instead, she stood there, her fists clenched at her sides. What the hell are you trying to do, Ethan? She snapped, finally breaking her silence. Is this some sort of game to you? I shook my head, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. No, it's not a game. It's the truth. Something you've been avoiding for a long time. And I'm not going to let you hide behind jokes anymore. I'm done with it. The tension in the room was unbearable. No one knew how to react. Amelia's face was a mask of fury and disbelief, and I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. I had finally said it. Finally taken control. Amelia turned to the group, her eyes pleading for someone to step in, to tell me I was out of line. But no one did. Not one person came to her defense. They were all too wrapped up in the mess we were creating. I couldn't tell if that made her angrier or more terrified. But as I stood there, staring at her, I realized something. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. In her place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had no problem humiliating me, tearing me down in front of others. I wasn't sure where we went wrong, but I knew one thing for certain. Whatever this marriage had been, it wasn't real anymore. The silence stretched between us like a heavy curtain. Amelia was still standing, eyes narrowed, her lips pressed tightly together as if trying to hold back something. Anger, frustration, maybe even guilt. But there was nothing genuine about it. Not anymore. You've really lost it, haven't you? Her voice was cold now, calculated. Making a scene in front of our friends, bringing all of this out in the open. Do you honestly think this is going to fix anything? I could see the facade slipping, her confident exterior cracking under the weight of the words I had just thrown at her. She had been so sure of herself, so comfortable in her role as the one who could control the narrative. But tonight, I was calling her bluff. "I'm not trying to fix anything, Amelia," I said, my voice steady, more composed than I felt. "I'm trying to be real for once. You don't get to make me the joke anymore. You don't get to humiliate me for your own entertainment." Her eyes flashed with something darker, something almost dangerous. "You're making a mistake, Ethan. You have no idea what you're doing." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing," I said, my gaze unwavering. "And maybe for once, you'll have to face the consequences of your actions." The room was still, and it felt like every breath I took was heavier than the last. Amelia was standing there, her expression flickering between disbelief and anger. But I wasn't going to back down. This wasn't just about one night, one toast. It was about everything that had built up over the years. The little comments, the subtle distancing, the way she had slowly chipped away at my dignity, making me doubt myself. And now I was done. Amelia opened her mouth to say something, but she paused, clearly calculating her next move. I could almost see the gears turning in her head, the manipulation, the charm that had worked so many times before. But this time, it wasn't going to work. Not with me. "I don't need your pity, Amelia," I said before she could speak. "And I don't need your excuses. What I need is for you to stop pretending that you care about me, that this marriage is anything but a convenience for you." The air between us crackled with tension, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. It was fleeting, gone in the next heartbeat, but it was there, and it made me realize something. She wasn't as invincible as she wanted me to believe. "I'm not the one who's pretending," she said, her voice quieter now, but still laced with venom. "You've been the one pretending all along. Pretending everything's fine when you're just too scared to face the truth. You're weak, Ethan. You always have been." Her words cut through me like a knife, but I stood my ground. Weak? I had spent years walking on eggshells for her, adjusting myself to fit into the life she had crafted. I had been the one who had been strong. Strong enough to hold it all together while she slowly pulled away. "I'm not weak, Amelia," I said, my voice low but steady. "I'm strong enough to walk away from this. From you." She didn't speak for a moment, but the silence was almost worse than the words. The weight of it settled between us like an impenetrable wall. I could see her struggling to hold on to the power she once had over me, but it was slipping, fast. "I'm done playing the fool," I added, almost to myself. "If you want this marriage to survive, it's going to have to be on equal terms. And that means no more humiliating me. No more pretending you don't know what you've been doing." Amelia's lips tightened into a thin line, her jaw clenched. She was angry, but I could see the fear creeping into her expression now. Fear of losing control. Fear of facing the truth. But I wasn't done yet. "I've let you have your fun for far too long," I said, taking a step closer. "But tonight, you're going to hear the truth. And you're going to listen." The silence in the room deepened, and I realized that for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of her anger, of her manipulation, of what might happen next. For the first time, I had control of my own story. And that, more than anything, was what terrified her. Amelia's face was a study in frustration and disbelief. The silence hung thick in the room, suffocating any sense of normalcy that had once existed between us. I could feel the intensity of her gaze, but I didn't flinch. This was the moment. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at me, her lips pressed tightly together. She took a step toward me, but it wasn't in anger. It was almost like she was trying to figure out if I had truly changed, if I was actually going to stand my ground this time. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" Her voice was quieter now, but there was still a sharp edge to it. "You really want to throw everything away because of a little joke?" "A little joke?" I repeated, my voice steady. "Is that what you call it? A little joke?" Amelia seemed taken aback, like she hadn't expected me to push back so hard. "What else am I supposed to call it?" she snapped. "I was just messing around. You always take everything so seriously." "I'm not the one who's making jokes at the other person's expense," I shot back. "You're the one who's been using me as your punching bag, and I'm done with it." Her face flickered with a brief flash of guilt before it was quickly masked by her usual defensive demeanor. She crossed her arms over her chest, the tension in the room growing even thicker. "You're overreacting, Ethan. You've always overreacted. The words were clipped, meant to undermine me, to make me feel small. But this time, it didn't work. No, I said firmly, stepping closer. I'm finally reacting. I've spent years walking on eggshells, letting you walk all over me. But no more. The room was holding its breath, our friends watching silently, their expressions a mixture of discomfort and curiosity. None of them knew what to say. They didn't know how to navigate the tension between us, but they could feel it. Amelia opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. No more jokes, no more pretending. The truth is out in the open now. You can try to hide behind your charm and your perfect little smile, but I'm not buying it anymore. Her face hardened as the words sank in. I could see the panic starting to rise in her eyes, something she wasn't used to. She had always been the one in control, always the one who made the decisions. But tonight, that control was slipping from her fingers. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of losing myself. Amelia took a deep breath, clearly trying to gather her thoughts. You think this is what you want, she said, her voice quieter now, almost pleading. You think I'm the problem here? Maybe you should take a long look at yourself, Ethan. Her words stung, but I wasn't backing down. I had taken her criticism, her jabs, her indifference for too long. I've already taken a long look at myself, Amelia, I said, my tone unwavering. And I know exactly what I'm worth. What I don't know is if you even remember what you promised me anymore. Her expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough to make me realize how deep the wound really was. She wasn't just trying to hide her actions. She was trying to cover up the truth. That was when I knew. I wasn't the one who had been blind. She had been. Amelia's eyes flickered for a moment, and I could tell she wasn't prepared for this. The look on her face was one I hadn't seen in years, vulnerability. For just a split second, she looked uncertain, like maybe, just maybe, the power she'd wielded for so long was slipping through her fingers. But the moment was brief, like a crack in glass that quickly sealed itself. Her expression shifted, her defenses snapping back into place. She lifted her chin, her usual arrogance returning. You're really going to do this, aren't you? Air our dirty laundry in front of everyone. You think that's going to solve anything? I didn't hesitate. No, I don't think it will solve everything. But it will finally bring the truth into the light. And maybe, just maybe, it'll force you to see things for what they really are. Her eyes hardened again, but I could sense her discomfort. She hated losing control. She hated not being the one to call the shots. Our friends, still silent, looked between the two of us, but no one dared to speak. I could feel their unease in the air, thick and heavy, like they were waiting for some kind of resolution. But this wasn't about them. This wasn't about the polite facade they expected. It was about me finally putting an end to the game she had been playing. You think I'm the only one who's been hiding something? Amelia's voice was sharp now, cutting through the tension. Maybe you should take a look at yourself, Ethan. You're not as innocent as you like to think. That stung. But instead of retreating, I stepped closer. What exactly are you implying? My voice was steady, but there was a fire building in my chest. You've been pushing me to my breaking point for months, and now you want to turn this around on me? Her eyes darted toward the others in the room, and I could see her trying to recalibrate, trying to regain control of the narrative. But it was too late. The truth had already started to slip through the cracks. She had been playing her part, holding the strings, pulling me along, while I had played the fool, too afraid to speak up. I've been nothing but patient with you, I said, my voice low but strong. I've kept my mouth shut while you used me as the punchline of your jokes. I've played the role of the perfect husband, the supportive partner, while you've chipped away at me bit by bit, making me feel like I was never enough. Amelia's jaw clenched, but she didn't speak. She was trying to keep it together, trying to pretend she wasn't rattled. But I could see it in the way her hand gripped the edge of the table, the way her eyes shifted. You've built this life on manipulation, Amelia, I continued, my voice growing colder. And I've been too blind to see it. I've been too afraid of losing you, of losing the life I thought we had, to realize that you were never really here with me. There was a long pause, and I saw a flicker of something, regret, guilt, cross her face. It was gone as quickly as it came, but it was enough to make me wonder if she even knew what she had done. If she even realized how far she had gone to bury the truth under her perfect, charming exterior. I never wanted this to happen, she said softly, her voice almost pleading. I never meant to hurt you, Ethan. You have to believe me. I didn't respond immediately. I just stared at her, waiting for the words to sink in. She was trying to regain her footing, trying to make me believe she was still the woman I had fallen in love with. But I knew better now. You've been lying to me for so long, Amelia, I said, my voice cold. And now, I'm not going to let you lie to me anymore. She opened her mouth to speak again, but the words caught in her throat. She was scrambling for control, but she couldn't find it. The walls she'd built around herself were crumbling, and there was no going back. The truth had finally come out, and there was no hiding from it anymore. The silence between us stretched on, the kind of silence that feels like a ticking clock counting down the end of something you can't undo. Amelia's face was a mask now, though I could see the cracks starting to form in her carefully constructed image. Her hands were shaking slightly, betraying her calm exterior, but I didn't say anything. I just watched her, watched as she tried to gather herself, tried to figure out her next move. She opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. She was trapped, caught in the web of lies she'd spun for so long. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the years of humiliation, the countless moments when she'd reduced me to a punchline in front of others. I couldn't afford to feel sorry for her anymore. Finally, she spoke, her voice tight. You don't understand, Ethan. You never understood. Oh, I understand more than you think, I said, my words sharp, cutting through the tension. I understand that you've been playing me, playing all of us. And I've let it happen because I was too scared to see it for what it was. Her eyes flickered, her jaw tightening. You think I'm the villain in this story? I'm not saying you're the villain. I replied, my voice low and steady. I'm saying you've been a coward. You've been running from the truth for years, and now it's catching up with you. Amelia's face flushed with anger. You have no idea what you're talking about, she spat, her voice rising. You think it's been easy for me? You think this has been some game? Her outburst shocked me for a moment, but I quickly recovered. It hasn't been easy for either of us, Amelia, but you've made it worse. You've made it worse by hiding behind your lies and your games. She took a step back, her arms crossing defensively over her chest. I never asked for your pity, Ethan, and I don't need your judgment now. It was like a slap to the face. The defensiveness, the distance. She was trying to push me away, trying to deflect the truth. But I wouldn't let her. I'm not pitying you. I'm done with pity. I'm done with making excuses for you. I said, my voice firm now. What I'm doing is standing up for myself, for the person I've been for so long. And I'm finally not afraid to call you out. Her expression faltered, just for a moment. I could see the vulnerability there, deep down. It was there, hidden beneath the walls she'd built, but I knew it was too late for apologies. She had already crossed too many lines. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, but this time, I didn't buy it. The words felt hollow, like an echo of something she thought I needed to hear. Maybe you didn't mean to, I said quietly, but that doesn't make it any less real. You've hurt me, Amelia, and I've allowed it for far too long. I've been complicit in my own misery, but no more. Her eyes were pleading now, like she wanted me to take it all back, to let her off the hook. But I didn't. I couldn't. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I continued, my voice quieter, but no less resolute. I'm just asking you to stop pretending that I don't know what's going on. I'm asking you to face the reality of who you've become, because I've been doing the hard work of seeing it for what it is. And now, it's your turn. Amelia took a shaky breath, her posture faltering as she absorbed my words. I could tell she wasn't used to being confronted like this, wasn't used to someone standing up to her. For the first time in a long time, she seemed unsure of herself, and I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. But even as I felt that surge of triumph, I knew the hardest part was yet to come. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The room was still, the weight of everything I'd said hanging heavily in the air. Amelia was standing there, her arms crossed, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and something else, something I could almost recognize as fear. Fear of losing control, fear of being exposed for who she had really become. For a long time, I had been the one hiding behind my own insecurities, swallowing my pride to keep the peace. But tonight, everything had changed. She took a step back, her eyes narrowing, but for the first time, I saw something else in them, regret. It was only a flicker, but it was there. That brief moment of vulnerability was enough for me to know that I had finally broken through the walls she'd spent years building around herself. But I didn't let it soften me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. "I didn't think you had it in you," she said quietly, her voice low and almost defeated. "I thought I could always control you, make you believe whatever I wanted. But you're not the man I thought you were." "I'm exactly the man I thought I was," I replied calmly. "And I've finally realized that I deserve better than what you've given me." Her face twisted in frustration, her eyes flashing with anger. "You think you can just walk away from this? From us? After everything we've been through?" I could feel the bitterness in her words, the desperation. She was trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. It wasn't just the relationship that had been broken. It was her perception of who she was. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I think I can walk away from the person you've become. I'm done pretending I don't see it. I'm done making excuses for you. You don't get to humiliate me, tear me down, and then expect me to stick around like nothing happened." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She was speechless, her usual deflecting charm gone. It was almost as if the woman I had once known was no longer there. What stood before me now was someone I didn't recognize. A person who had spent so long manipulating everyone around her that she had forgotten what it meant to be real. I turned to our friends, who had been watching this entire confrontation unfold. They had seen everything, and for once, they weren't just passively sitting by. They were looking at me with something akin to respect, even admiration. It was clear that they were finally seeing me for who I truly was, not the joke I had been for so long. "I don't need your approval," I said to Amelia, my voice ringing clear. "But I do need to move on. I need to stop pretending that this, whatever this has become, is healthy." Amelia's eyes welled up, but I wasn't moved. She had hurt me too many times to earn my sympathy anymore. I could feel a sense of finality settling in my chest. It was over. "I'll leave," I said quietly, as if giving her the last word would somehow make it real. "I'll leave, and you'll have to face the consequences of your actions." The silence stretched for a moment longer. I didn't wait for her to respond. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into staying or convincing me that we could somehow fix this. The truth had come out, and there was no turning back. As I walked toward the door, I felt something I hadn't in years: freedom. I wasn't walking away defeated. I wasn't walking away broken. I was walking away whole, walking away from a woman who had long since stopped seeing me as her equal, and I was reclaiming the power I had lost. The weeks that followed were a blur of emotions, but with each passing day, I felt more and more at peace. I surrounded myself with people who cared about me, people who lifted me up, and in time, the memories of what had happened with Amelia faded. The betrayal, the humiliation, those things didn't define me anymore. What defined me was my strength to walk away, my ability to finally stand up for myself. As for Amelia, the consequences of her actions came quickly. She lost the friends who had once rallied around her, the ones who had believed her lies. They started to see her for who she truly was, someone who used charm to manipulate, who wore a smile while stabbing others in the back. I wasn't the only one who had suffered at her hands. Eventually, she found herself isolated, left to face the reality of what she had done. The life she had so carefully curated with deceit crumbled. And while I didn't take pleasure in seeing her pay for her actions, I knew it was karmic justice. The truth had a way of catching up, and in the end, it was her own lies that destroyed her. As for me, I rebuilt my life. It wasn't easy, but I learned something important through it all: the power of standing up for myself, the strength in embracing the truth, and the importance of knowing when to walk away from something toxic. I had finally found my peace, and nothing, not even Amelia's manipulation, could take that away from me.